Okay, there she is. Well, welcome everyone. We do have a couple minutes to go, but as people are coming on here, I wanted to reiterate that I put in the chat there. If you don't know the original caretakers of the land on which you stand, open up that link. There are a lot of really great resources. You can find out not only the name of the original caretakers on the land you're on, but also how to do some more soul searching, especially with your entire congregation. I know that it's sometimes easier to do this stuff on your own. And I know with our small group at our church, we've been we're in our 5th or 6th week now, seeking out with each other, what are our next steps? Beyond acknowledgement, what's the next step? So I encourage you all to do that work and I wish you well in the patience that it takes to do that work. Since we have to remind ourselves that yes, our title in our group is Lutherans Restoring Creation, but way long before Luther put anything on any doors, there were a lot of peoples caring for this good creation. So we just happen to be in that tradition and linking those traditions, those Lutheran traditions, to caretaking and earthkeeping. But there are a lot of other cosmologies that have a lot to teach us as well. We are not the experts. Okay, as people are still coming in, it's 8 o'clock. I will welcome you all and just introduce myself briefly. Phoebe Morad, I'm Executive Director of Lutherans Restoring Creation, and I welcome you all here. We are a very grassroots group of people cultivating stewards for hope and healing for all. And I'm really excited to hand over the baton to Susan in a moment. It's Susan, Jerry, Nancy, and Keith from really across the country that are going to share all that they have learned, being able to listen into their communities and their caring for creation in so many different ways. And this is a great little snippet of being able to hear really what I've noticed in having the luxury of having this position is that our churches are doing caring for creation work really all the time. And unfortunately, we don't have many spaces to celebrate this. And this is one of those spaces where we can learn from each other, grow from one another's work, learn from one another, and hopefully fuel each other to do more and to share this work with others. So I thank you all for being here. I am going to hand the baton over to Susan Meyer now and thank her so much for organizing this crew. As you will tell from her slide presentation, she is a master organizer and really great at rallying people together and rallying information together. So thank you so much, Susan. We welcome you and over to you.
Thank you. I will share my screen and press the play button up there. And hello, fellow Earthlings. We are Lutherans Embracing the Earth Charter. And to start off, I would like to invite you to put into the chat, just for a moment or two, what you know about the Earth Charter, what the purpose of the Earth Charter is, and who it was developed for. So if we could just take a moment, I'll check to see that we don't take more than 60 seconds or so. And while you're doing that, I will let you know that I am living in the area where the Susquehannock, the Nantego or Nanticoke, and the Piscataway peoples spent time near modern-day Baltimore, Maryland. And others from our group are from Metro New York, New England, and the Central State Synods. And so let's read some of those chat entries. Can somebody read them for me? I can't get to them right this moment. Jerry, can I ask you to read from the chat? Or Keith, can you read from the chat? Oh, you have to go off mute.
I got to come off mute. Yeah. Let me get down to where they are. Developed by many grassroots groups around the world, truly a people's charter for how humans can live justly and sustainably on the planet.
Great.
Learned at Ghost Ranch. Congregations could support creation. I'm just learning here. I'm here to learn about it, what it's about.
Okay, great.
Common platform to administer justice, democracy, and ecological integrity.
Okay, so several
Those are some
of
good
you-
thoughts.
Yes, yes, that is so great. So let's continue on. I say that the Earth Charter is 4 pages of wow, because it is just incredible. You already know some of the concepts of it, some of you, but what it was written for was to create a shared sense of responsibility for all of the beings, all plants, animals, and people. And so it was crafted by visionaries about 22 years ago. It is the culmination of thousands of grassroots individuals and organizations, as one of you has put in there. This is a picture of it on my kitchen counter. And while it is only 4 pages, it is huge in its intent. It was written for the collective we. It is a secular document, but it has the goal to inspire a sense of shared responsibility throughout the whole human family, responsibility for the greater community of life, and importantly, future generations. It is intended for all individuals, organizations, both for-profit and not-for-profit, and for governments. There is no one left out of its intentions. And although it is a secular document, it is in lockstep with all of our teachings, all of our values, and all the ideals taught by Jesus and the prophets who came before him. This is the first of the 4 pillars: caring for the community of life, interdependence among all plants, animals, and people. Number 2, ecological integrity, which some of you have already put in there. Number 3, social and economic justice. And number 4, democracy, nonviolence, and peace. These are the 4 pillars that the Earth Charter is all written around. It calls itself a vision of hope and a call to action. It has 16 principles and 61 objectives within those 16 principles. So as it's calling itself a vision of hope and a call to action, we've begun talking about it as a prescription for bringing heaven to earth. And you may ask, what does bringing heaven to earth mean? And we just mean when everyone has enough. And the ELCA endorsed the Earth Charter in October of 2019, and we are very proud of that. Now, that since it was created in the year 2000, we may ask the question, why did it take so long? And we don't really know the answer to that. So we will just be proud that it endorsed it in 2019, and we are going from there. And what we did about a year ago is we created a website to make it easy for people who don't know about the Earth Charter yet to learn about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing right now so that I can take us over to our website and start sharing again. And just walk through our website a little bit. So here on the front page, we have inspirational pieces. This is a poem by the wonderful Amanda Gorman. Then there's a 1:20 second video put out by the Earth Charter people themselves. This looks familiar from the slide I just presented. And this gentleman, Stephen Rockefeller, was one of the early creator, well, he was one of the creators of this and assemblers of this document. So on the front page, we have these inspirational things, and then we go into more of the details. And so what we say here is that we have taken the Earth Charter and just put it into a spreadsheet kind of thing that you all can look at and go through and decide, okay, well, I'm already working on this, 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 and this, but maybe I would like to work on this, this, and this, or maybe just one of those thises. And we have a page of resources that offer suggestions for things that you may care to look at, you know, starting from the Bible, the social statement, the ELCA social statement from '93, and on through other resources that we have on this webpage. And the last thing I will talk about is this contact page. If you have any questions after this presentation or anytime in the future, you're welcome to contact us. So I'm going to stop sharing on that. And I am just about ready to turn this over to Keith. However, I need to get I need to get back to the slides. Okay, I think I'm back at the slides. And okay.
Hit play, go up to play.
Oh, play. Right. Thank you. Do you have that now?
That's fine. I can pick up from there. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Again, my name is Keith Mundy, and I'm in the Overland Park, Kansas area, and formerly served on the ELCA Churchwide staff in a role there in stewardship. And I was aware very early that the Earth Charter was adopted by the ELCA, and in the spring of 2020, began exploring possibilities for a group of synods to work together and pilot the introduction of this in their synods. And over the following months, we put together a proposal that outlined some ideas of what a grant might look like to do this. And then we began to approach different synods, and particularly looking for 4 synods who had some interest in the Earth Charter and interest in moving forward and piloting some ideas. And we did this with a specific approach in mind, and that is using some of the principles and practices of community organizing or organizing for mission. And so we incorporated that into our particular approach of implementing the Earth Charter in these 4 synods. And so we submitted a grant to the Stewardship of Life Institute and received a grant. And between the grant and some funding that came from the 4 participating synods, and you might see those synods, by the way, are over on the left-hand side: Central State Synod, Delaware, Maryland, Metro New York, and New England Synod. Those are the 4 synods that have been involved in this pilot project. And as you would imagine, we started out, it was kind of all new to all of us. We began by forming a leadership team, and that's the people who are here today talking with this group, are the leaders who have now been meeting for not quite 2 years, but approaching 2 years that we've been meeting regularly to work on this project, think through a lot of the details, share our experiences, and talk about what some of the possibilities are going forward. And so we went ahead and we put the grant together. We got the grant, and then we started meeting as a team for a few months. And then this is a 2-year grant. So we're in the 2nd year of the grant now as we go into 2022. And what our objective initially was to work with 6 congregations in each synod each year. So that would be 48 congregations over a 2-year period of time. Well, of course, when we were designing this and putting this in place, we had no idea that COVID was going to come along. And so as we began to realize the impact that would have on our efforts, we had to kind of focus our efforts accordingly. And so we have been very specific in trying to work with and identify specific congregations who wanted to work with us. And we have not had as many congregations as we had hoped, because many congregations could not meet, could not go out in the community and do some of the activities that they wanted to do. So we've had fewer congregations than hoped, but nevertheless, that's part of the reason that we created the website that Susan introduced. And then we have begun to look at creating resources, and we'll talk about one of those resources a little bit later, about how some of the organizing for mission skills that we have learned and been trained in during the first year have now been put into a document that is available for everyone to use. At this particular point, we are looking to move into the second year of this, and we're in the process of looking for congregations to be able to participate in this in our respective synods. But at the same time, we're making the resources of the website and the organizing for mission principles available to any congregation that wants to use that. And we would certainly be available to answer questions. We've had the training. We are not considered experts or professional organizers just because we've been through the training, but we've learned the principles and we're putting those into practice as we work with different groups. So that's kind of the status of where we're at with our grant at this point. We're going to make some tweaks to that for the second year. We're still fine tuning what some of those tweaks are in terms of how we approach it, but we're encouraged about the possibilities and the work we've been able to do so far. Thank you. And I think I'm ready to turn it over to Pastor Nancy, who's going to talk a little bit about the New England Synod.
Now, if I could just make a comment before that. Phoebe, when did you want to talk?
I do enough talking. I'm learning tonight, and really you guys are covering it all. I'll just say that the only role really Lutherans Restoring Creation had in all of this, which is wonderful, is just knowing already that there were a lot of you already doing this work, ready to listen to your communities and go through this training. And to the larger group here, I know a lot of you across the nation are doing this work. We selected, these 4 synods are like the nursery of what can happen across the country. So I just want everyone on the call to know that this is material and these are tools that everyone can use. And thanks to this group for starting it, but these 4 synods aren't the only ones that get access to this. I'll just say that. So over to you, Pastor Nancy.
Hi, thanks. And it's great to see everyone. Can you hear me? Great. So 6 churches in the New England Synod participated in the training. And I won't go through their names here, but the training, I would just like to say, will be discussed later in terms of handouts that have been prepared for use by everybody. But it's basically community organizing training, starting with building relationships, one-on-one conversations with people. My kitty cat has to go down. There you go in. You go see. Building one-on-one relationships with people through listening about values and about issues, and through that identifying issues that are held by these people, and then by the community that they are in, and then researching solutions, taking action, and then reflecting on the process in a whole cycle like that. So that's what the training involved, and we'll discuss that a little bit later with the handouts that have been prepared so everybody can know about this. But then we were through our one-on-ones, each of us did, and we were to keep track of the one-on-ones and what the issues developed from the people that we talked to. We then connected those issues to aspects of the Earth Charter. So it was really learning from the Earth Charter and learning how to do community organizing, which is a little tricky to manage as you're learning to do community organizing. And it resulted in several actions on the part of each of us. And by the way, we had one special session around writing letters to the editor or opinion pieces, which our trainer, Kelly Marcialis, from the Synod in Alaska, was our trainer. She identified as one action step. And so several of us wrote letters that were published as letters to the editor around what are called forever chemicals, PFAS, PFAS chemicals that are toxins in the water that are getting just a lot of publicity in all the states. And once one of us brought that up, the others in the New England Synod just, in the same meeting we were being trained in, looked up PFAS on their websites and found legislation related to those in their states that they could then write about. Another member of the group set up a meeting. This was a clergy person, set up a meeting with the state representative in Massachusetts for their area with 20 constituents and with 4 other churches. So it was an ecumenical group to talk about what was called, this is in Massachusetts, the new climate roadmap, and to support them on that. Support the legislature on that. Another participant wrote about how the training just really galvanized her church. She wrote, "The Earth Charter Training Project has energized our congregation, affecting every church council committee, as outlined in the list below," which she then gave a list, because they're also a Lutherans Restoring Creation Covenant Church, so they know about lists and about all the aspects of the church's life. And she said all activities have been completed or are being considered. And then another person wrote about how the training has also been helpful to his church, and he reported on one of the fall Lutherans Restoring Creation's Connection Zoom call. That was Aurelio Ramirez, who we heard from a couple of months ago. So overall, we were impressed and we were helped, and we really want to carry this forward now to other congregations in the New England Synod.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. And Keith, did you want to say anything about the Central States, or Jerry, did you want to say anything about the New York Metro?
Jerry, go ahead. Unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Sure. I guess my perspective is going to be a little bit different because, like I said, we're still in our infancy here, and we were fortunate enough to be one of the 4 synods to be able to join into the program. But it hasn't been all that easy. So I just want to give you guys an idea of how it might look like. So we had initially about 8 people who joined the advocacy training. And in the end, we had 5 people that actually finished the program. And of course, we were anxious to go out there and get all the 180 churches in our synod to join in with us to share the experience. But what we didn't realize is that, as we're seeing from the chat over here, is a lot of people have no idea what the Earth Charter is all about. So we realized we had to mind the gaps, so to speak, the gap between what we knew and what our congregations know. So what we've done, actually, we've sort of taken a step back at this point. And what we're going to do to sort of at least excite people and have them participate and learn more about the Earth Charter is we're going to have an Earth Sunday program on April 24th, which is the week after Easter. And we're going to ask, we already have a number of churches that are joined up right now, but we're going to come up with either a common prayer, blessing, or a bell tolling or something of that nature, where all the churches will do it the same part of their service on it. And then afterwards, well, let me back up a little bit. I mean, my church, I guess, got heavily involved in this thing, and we're thinking to try to get other churches to join us on it. Is we want to have a seedling that will pass across 3 generations, grandparent to parent to child, and with each passing, reminding them of their obligations as a steward on it. And my particular church, we've actually asked all the churches in our community to join us in this activity. And what we're going to do is, after the ceremony, we're going to join in a public park somewhere, and each of the churches will bring their seedling and plant it. So, hopefully with that type of activity, the churches within our synod and churches within our community will learn more about the Earth Charter and its importance. And, hopefully we can get more churches on board that way.
That's great. Thank you, Jerry. And Keith, did you want to?
Right, certainly. Got a few thoughts to share about how we're approaching this in the Central States Synod, which is Kansas and Missouri. Our focus has been kind of a focus the first year on awareness and education, and the second year is on action and advocacy. And so we began by focusing on some leadership development and bringing together the leaders from our own synod team. So we've got 6 people within our Senate who serve as on a leadership team. And then we have an expanded group that includes our Lutherans Restoring Creation leadership team, which is another 6 to 8 people. And then we have some congregations who were involved in that training as well, which is about another 4 to 5 people. So we're looking at about 15 to 18 people that have been involved in the training to learn some of the community organizing skills that we received in 6 sessions over about 9 months. And some of the congregations have begun to pick up and use those skills. One of the congregations is St. Mark's Lutheran in Olathe, Kansas, which is a southwestern suburb of Kansas City. And they, in the first year, went and put an orchard on their property. They're in a suburb, but they have quite a bit of acreage, so they put an orchard. And they're now in the process of putting a garden in. And their next step is they want to be putting a pond in. So an orchard, a garden, and a pond to kind of bring the environment close to the ministry that they do. A second example of this is that one of the organizations participating is not a congregation, but it is Camp Tamashinga, which is one of the 2 camps in our particular synod. And it is located about 2 hours west of Kansas City. And we had a retreat out there. And what that particular camp is focusing on is to put in an environmental learning center that it will have on its site, so that when youth and children and adults come, they can go to the environmental learning center and learn about the environment, and particularly about the environment at that particular location. Now, this learning center did have a cost to it. And so when we were there for a retreat last October, they were kicking this off, and some of us made contributions to that. And within 6 weeks, they raised over $15,000 that they needed in order to build this learning center. And they're in the process right now of putting that in place so that by spring, they will be able to start using that for people who visit the camp. So that's an example of one of the projects that grew out of some of the things that we're working on here. Now, as we look towards 2022, what we're focusing on is our Synod Assembly, which is going to have a theme that focuses on the Earth Charter. And we have a keynote speaker who's going to be focusing on that. And we also have 10 different workshops that focus on the Earth Charter and caring for creation, composting, a whole variety of topics around that. And so those who attend the Synod Assembly, which we anticipate will be close to the 300 people range, will have an opportunity to participate in these 10 different workshops that we have. And then we're looking to follow up with congregations after this event and give them an opportunity to start putting some of those community organizing principles into practice. So that's kind of the direction that we're going in Central States.
That's great. Thank you, Jerry. And speaking of community organizing training, I will just call up the materials. Let's see, I need to bring this over here. Is that? So this is our handouts. Y'all can see this. This is the version of it in Canva that we have made, and now it's going through a final review by our trainers. And as soon as it is finished and blessed, we'll be putting it up on our website. So I think Pastor Nancy had spoken about some of the things about research meetings. We have an aspect here, problems versus issues. You know, this is one-to-ones, how to conduct one-to-ones, and building teams. And so this is what we learned in our training. This is what we're trying to do, you know, with our work. So I will stop sharing that right now and come back. And I think we're towards the end of what we intended to present. So now we have opportunities for discussion. Did I miss something? Anybody? No. Okay.
I think I just want to pause here and thank you all so much for not only sharing with us tonight, but it's been over a year, and it was quite you all launched into this really kind of last minute, like, here's an opportunity. You want it? Ready? You have 5 minutes to decide. I think you all felt that way. And you all said yes. And what I really appreciate about hearing from Jerry as well is that it's all going to look different, and it's not all going to go at, you're not all going to go at the same pace, and you're not all going to do the same type of things, and you're going to find pitfalls. And I just really appreciate how quickly you all and your teams picked up something. You were just like, okay, we have this opportunity, we got to use it. And I also really appreciate as an ELCA that this was one of those things where I realized that we had this great resource of an amazing trainer, a few trainers in the Organizing for Mission Network. And we had this great piece of this Earth Charter that, again, now that you're all having this first chance to look at it, it's an amazing document that we just didn't really know about until some people got together at Ghost Ranch and really studied it. And, oh, wow, let's write a memorial about it and make sure that everybody signs it. Like, we came together with all these different pieces and then moved forward, but everybody had to bring their own assets to the table and then move forward. And I really appreciate the fact that not only have we written something, but that you're all picking up the baton with, these are wonderful words. Now, how do they enact us to live out our faith? So I thank you for all the work you've done and will continue to do, and for sharing it here tonight. So on with the questions. If you don't feel comfortable showing your face or your screen on and want to write a question, I will try to look through here and lift it up. Okay, I'm just gonna lift up right off the bat from Al Duggan. It seems that this is a reinvention of the wheel. What we might want to do better is to listen to our Indigenous brothers and sisters who lived in this land for 10,000 plus years and learn to respect and revere it. And yes, a lot of this to me does seem that we just need to be reminded over and over and over and over again. Other questions too that I think are important in general that have come to me are, well, is this group different than what Lutherans Restoring Creation does? Or how is this different from our Green Team? Or how is this different? You know what, when I forget what organization, I think it's the Pachamama Alliance that has a great video that it lists for about, it can go on and on for hours, but it's a list of all the local small organizations that do eco-justice work. And there are millions of them. And maybe we could be more efficient if we all came together and had one. Or maybe this is how the Holy Spirit needs to work and be a little messy. So that's my quick answer to the question, that no, none of this is in competition with each other. So I just want to lift that up and know that if you already have a Caring for Creation team, it doesn't mean you can't do this, and you can all do it in concert, and however we get to the table, get there.
I'd like to add, I think of the Earth Charter as a mindset. It's just, you know, there's a lot of information, and don't forget about this, and don't forget about that, and don't, you know, it's a mindset, though. It's an opening. It's a breaking down of stacks, whatever those things are called. Yeah.
Excellent. And Larry, you have your hand up. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to comment that I think one of the important issues here is that the Earth Charter provides a way of going forward in terms of ethics and people working together. And so the big question that we have is, how do we go from where we are to getting 95% of the people in the world working together to move towards sustainability and move towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving forests and reducing methane emissions, so that we accomplish the goals of the Paris Agreement on climate change and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you, Larry.
And yes, to reiterate the fact that the Earth Charter led to the Sustainable Development Goals. That was a pipeline. Larry Ryan, I see your hand up next, and then Lisa Brinskelly. Oh, Larry, you have to unmute.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry Erickson, for your comments that are important. I wanted to also thank Susan for giving leadership in the Delaware, Maryland Synod, because she really helped us a lot to keep our well organized, if you will. Susan and I had an opportunity to be in Glasgow, Scotland, and what I found when we were meeting with different groups, whether it was the World Council of Churches or CCAN, was that the Earth Charter really provided a basis or a common metric for all of the groups. There are over 350 interest groups from the USA alone there. And the Earth Charter really had a good plan for a sustainable future and a way to meter what we were doing. And I mentioned it, and more people said, yeah, that's great. Let's do this. So I think to answer your questions, Larry, which are good questions, let's hope that through faith groups and the use of Earth Charter, we can work toward a cooperative behavior, doing exactly what you think is important. And that is those things you mentioned, working together, reforesting the world, reducing our greenhouse gases. The Earth Charter gives us that guideline and the metric that we can measure about how well we're doing with this stuff. I think the church plays a big role in this, and I'd like to see it continue with the efforts to implement the Earth Charter. I think the long term will really pay off. Keith, I know 1 year is hard to measure, but I think we've planted a lot of seeds, and there's a lot of good things to come, especially in the Delaware, Maryland Synod. I do think there's some really creative implementation of this. So thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. Susan, again, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Go ahead, Lisa Brinskelly.
I'll turn on my camera. It's kind of dark in here. You probably can't see me too much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a comment and a question. So I wanted to respond to Larry with some science. There is a pretty good scientific study that has shown that to change societal norms only requires 25% of the people. So if you can get 1 in 4 people to do a thing, switch to electric vehicles, purchase renewable electricity, whatever it is, the rest of society will follow. So that is our task, to get 1 in 4. If we can do that, everyone else will be along for the ride. That's what the science shows. So I just wanted to mention that, because some people think that you have to get 80%, you have to get the majority. That's not true. 1 in 4. So I wanted to mention the science in that space, and there's some other science around political change, but I won't even go there. That's an even smaller number. But let's just say that you can make significant change with a very small number of people. That's just the way society works. So that's my comment. My question is this. So as I understood it, and maybe I misunderstood, the materials seem to be, the Earth Charter materials seem to be focused on community organizing. Is that correct? Do I correctly understand? And if so, why was that focus chosen?
Maybe I can address that. I won't say the Earth Charter materials are focused on that. I would say that's the approach that we chose to apply the church charter.
Well, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't being very clear.
And so we chose that because we weren't aware of that approach being used anywhere else to be able to address the charter, and thought this might be a good way to put those principles to use. We did this in conjunction with the Organizing for Mission group from the ELCA. And so we thought that was a good way to partner with them to use those principles to implement the Earth Charter.
Okay, thank you, because I agree with you. I don't believe that approach has been done previously, because I'm familiar with the various trainings that are given by the Earth Charter organization, and they don't do that. So that's an interesting choice. Thank you.
I see some people are trying to perhaps get off mute, or is that not the case? Oh, Sharon, go ahead. Sharon, some else. Yep, there you go.
Yes, yes. I'm intrigued with this. I certainly advocate in the city where I am. And I'm wondering, how do we get beyond people's resistance to this? If it's not in their yard, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to be involved in it. And we're in a city where no matter, it seems, how much we speak out, and I have a 6-acre area down below me that I have been fighting for years, and I still am. But the whole premise of the city is that it's got to be worth the money to the city, not worth human life, not creation, but it's a dollar sign. How do we get past that dollar sign mentality?
Well, I don't have a really good answer to that, but what our training has taught us is that we need to seek out the people who have common thinking, and that is how we make progress. So finding kindred souls and finding what is important to those souls is where we create power. We build power by finding those people. That is the hard part, and that's where the one-to-one conversations come in. So I don't know. I know that doesn't answer your question about overcoming, but it's a different tact. We're looking for successes by finding people who will work with us and who think the same way we do, that this is important.
And
Susan,
I think one of the pieces that we have come out of that is by connecting with these people, we begin to discover resources that are available or can be available to help out a specific effort. Okay. And this is what happened with the camp and trying to put together this learning center. They didn't know where they were going to get 15,000. But when they started talking about it and they connected what we're doing, and then they started talking more about it, they began to find people who would get behind that project. And so I don't say every project is going to be one that people are going to rise in the short term or medium term support, but there are some that they will. And you kind of have to respond partly to where's the strongest interest and where's the place you can build commitment for implementation.
I'm going to add the link here too for the Organizing for Mission group and network so that you can know a little bit more about them. But if any of you have gone through the training can speak a little bit more to what Susan and Keith were alluding to there, and that is, what's the difference between speaking to each other in an echo chamber, only speaking to people that agree with you, and doing the one-on-ones that you've done? Because it doesn't seem very, to a lot of us that are like, the house is on fire, it doesn't seem efficient to do one-on-ones, right? So if anybody can speak to that.
Yes, it does feel like it's a drop in the bucket compared to what is out there, but it is what was chosen for our team. It makes sense, for the way we're approaching it, and we hope it catches on, and spreads like wildfire, as opposed to just a drop in the bucket.
Could I add something to that question? I think that if the perception is a real emergency and people are aware of that, then you would jump into this organizing cycle, another step. You would be beyond the one-on-ones. You would go into the research, and if it's obvious what action to take, then you would take the action, and then there's reflection, and then it starts again. So the organizing cycle can be jumped into at any point.
I think one of the issues we have is that education is important for people to understand these issues, and the whole issues of moving forward in sustainable development and addressing all of the environmental issues and social issues. They're complex, and so we need public education as part of this. And many people think that maybe the governments need to do this, and it's good if the governments are involved, but there are cities and there are congregations and there are universities and there are non-government organizations, and we need to get all of these people involved, and we need individuals who are working and doing things in terms of their own personal aspects. My wife and I have 2 plug-in electric cars that are hybrids, and it has saved us money to have them, and they are outlasting the gasoline cars that we've normally had in the past. And we've been very pleased to have them, but we've also reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by having them.
Thank you, Larry. Elizabeth, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to circle back to another perspective on the one-on-ones. We went through the RIC process, Reconcile in Christ process, and used the one-on-ones, I think, very effectively. What's an emergency to me, if it's not an emergency to my neighbor, we need to have a conversation about finding some common ground. And the one-on-ones were very rich, and we learned from each other. We had stories to share. And when it came time for that required vote, it was unanimous. So it's just, we know the house is on fire. On the other hand, if we want to bring our neighbors along, it's something to consider.
I think one of the things that we learned early on when we talk about the one-to-ones is the difference of what self-interest. Sometimes you hear the term self-interest, but self-interest can be common interest. What are the common interests that we have? Here in the Midwest, one of the concepts is called the Great Lakes effect, in that the states that are around the Great Lakes have many different opinions and ideas of things that they want to do, but they all agree that they want to keep the Great Lakes safe and preserve the Great Lakes. And so it's the Great Lakes effect. It's the issue that brings all those people around the table with a common interest and a common focus. Is it self-interest? Yes, but beyond self-interest, it's common interest.
Thank you. Thor, I see your hand up.
Yes, we have a very complicated situation. I'm in the Seattle metro area and Washington State. Oops, let me get this down. The obvious reaction for most people is to protect the forests and the salmon and the natural environment. The climate, though, is drying out among the fastest in this place in the world. We're among the hottest and driest. It's a trend. And my daughter has a master's in biology, and she reports that 70% of the trees are beyond their adaptive range. They will get sick and they will die. So you really have to be careful about what the right action is, and at least on the West Coast, because the Colorado River is forecast to be less and less water every year. It's creating a crisis for 40 million people. So I'm not sure this is represented in the discussions on the central and east coast of the United States, but it's a red hot issue here on the West Coast. And I regret that 95% of the people are still supportive of protecting the trees. It gets kind of lonely in the camp saying, well, how's that going to work out if there's a fire?
Thor, I think that's a good example, but each of our respective geographic areas have similar interests. It may not be the forest here in Kansas, it's something else, but we faced similar issues.
I'm curious to combining the one-on-one mentality of organizing with what the Earth Charter, obviously in the title, it asks us what to do as Earth community. How I see the chart that Susan has showed us on the screen. How have you been able to use that chart as a bridge to this is what we do in communities to this is what needs to be done maybe just as our ELCA institution? What are the next steps that this group, the 4 of your synods, have decided thus far? How are we doing on that roadmap?
Well, these are, I think, go ahead, Susan, go ahead.
Oh, We have received input from 2 ELCA organizations. And what we have noticed is that a lot of aspects of the Earth Charter are being addressed by the ELCA, but the one aspect that is kind of not being addressed is the one about keeping fossil fuels in the ground and monitoring what we take out of the ground and not depleting resources, as well as not degrading the environment. And so what the Delaware Maryland Synod has done is they've gotten a few materials together, and we've gone to our finance team, and we're asking them to take a look at that and be aware of which banking institutions, which investment firms are conscious of the funds that keep funding fossil fuel investment projects. And so this brings us to the Lrc Memorial that Phoebe, I think you're going to be talking about next month. Is that right?
Yeah.
The board passed in December, and we hope to be fully supportive of that.
I will also put that in the link so each of you can start working on that in your own areas as well.
I think one of the other responses to that question, Phoebe, is that we're still in this 2-year grant and we're still learning. And I think the questions you asked are going to be some of the outcomes that we will want to identify and summarize and talk about what the next steps might be.
Excellent.
Phoebe, can I make a comment about the power of the one-on-one conversations and just bring it down to ground level? Just a quick story. So in my church, when we started an environmental stewardship committee, I was naive enough to show the Al Gore movie. I forgot the name of it back then. But I didn't realize what kind of rancor it was going to cause. I just thought everyone would enjoy the movie on it. And of course, it didn't quite turn out that way. But the important part was, when we showed the movie, it opened up conversations between all of us. We kind of all knew where everyone stood. And in the end, I mean, some people who were, I guess, against environmentalism actually became activists. And in the end, you never know who the next activist is going to be on it. So, you do this one brick at a time, and sooner or later, maybe you get your 20% that we were talking about.
Thank you. Larry, yeah.
It's really good if we can increase the number of people that are active in efforts to address the climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And but we're in a situation where we're moving slowly, and we need to do what we can to increase the number of people involved and move forward in a positive way in all of our congregations and a lot of other groups as well.
Again, I like to refer back to what Lisa said about the 1 in 4. And we had just mentioned this to our kids the other day, how it's so hard for that first person to stand up when you make a standing ovation, but then comes the second and then everybody's standing. So if you can try to keep those kind of numbers visually in your head, I think it does help. So Marilyn, I see your hand up.
I don't know how many people might have read the book by Catherine Hayhoe, Saving Us, but her big thing is talk about it, because a lot of people care, but not as many people are talking about it, and what a big difference that can make. And I also thought it was really interesting. She gave a percentage of the environmental problems that can be solved through individual actions versus systemic change. And I feel like churches are pretty keen on doing those individual things because they're not very political. But I don't think we can avoid understanding what kind of legislation is out there. And I feel like we really have to educate ourselves, because we take a lot of steps backwards if we don't realize what kind of things are being passed by our legislatures.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think
The other thing that
Sharon.
sorry.
Sharon.
Yeah, a question. Is there a short video of the Earth Charter available, or can one be made that we can actually put on our own websites?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Susan.
Yeah, there's a very inspirational, it's just a minute and 20 seconds that is right on the front page of our website. I believe it's a YouTube video that we, ported over. I can double check that while we're talking.
Yes,
The
Susan,
Earth-
you
the
can
Earth
put it in the chat.
Charter has a number of videos also, and so if you go to the earthcharter.org site, you can find some information there as well.
Right, yeah. It looks like we have enough time. I can just show you, what this video is.
The Earth is magnificent, an ecosystem of diversity with one shared destiny. But our home is in crisis, and we know we have to act. Yet knowing is not enough. We don't need a new agenda, we need a new mindset. This is Earth Charter, a document with 16 principles turning conscience into action, our commitment to a just, sustainable, and peaceful world. With these foundations, we can all get to work. To the oceans, the mountains, and the forests. To our homes, our schools, and businesses. Powered by a growing global movement working together to make all life on Earth thrive. Founded by visionaries 20 years ago. We invite the visionaries of today to join us. To show the future that we're never giving up. We know you're ready. Now, let's get to work.
So that's on the front page of the website that we put together. Does that satisfy, Sharon?
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good for teens and up. And I wish you had cartoons or a cartoon kind of format for the little ones, because when we find that children push us, it often makes a difference.
There are specifically ones for children. If you go on YouTube, you'll find them. They're a little longer. They're like 6 or 7 minutes. So I chose the shortest one for, for our website.
I'm curious for those of you that have passed. Oh, go ahead, Nancy.
Just to say that fact that we're talking about one-on-ones, all of us then involved our Care for Creation or our green teams in our churches. So that adds more conversation, like the PFAS, the forever toxic chemicals, are often spread from military bases and from the fire foam that's used. And when I brought that issue to our Care for Creation committee, since we have a National Guard base here in Burlington, Vermont, one of the committee members, and I thought she was very, in a way, courageous to say this, said that she didn't want us to be involved in sounding like we were opposing the military base. And I was about to write the letter, which was published, about the PFAS, and it was just mentioned the military base. But so I think it's a really good, as an earlier person talked about, the importance of conversation with people, and it goes from the one-on-ones to the groups in our churches and then to other churches. So it's kind of like these networks like that of conversation. And then when people get more information, like about PFAS, and realize it's in everything, it's in clothing, it's in nonstick pans, it's running off of the tarmacs in the airports, and it's really hard to get out of groundwater, and they get alarmed. And then they see that some people are acting, and then they start acting or writing letters. So that's just an example of how the issue from the one-on-ones and the groups, it can grow like that. And what we used was, I believe, Susan, you can correct me because the Earth Charter is not right in front of me, but for the PFAS, it was section 2, number 6D. I may be off, but it says something like that in the Earth Charter: do not do irreparable harm. Well, PFAS chemicals, what is it?
I think it's 5, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. PFAS chemicals are irreparable harms. So you just get an issue and then you look on the Earth Charter, and the Earth Charter just makes your heart feel so good because it just says that this should not be happening.
Any other final questions? And I know we'll have a lot more. I will be sharing all of this information on our site, including the chat. So hopefully you said all nice things on the chat. That'll be on there along with all of these wonderful links that people are sharing. And I do really invite you to the next phase of the conversation. Next month, we will be having a conversation specifically about how we steward our finances as an institution and as consumers, as investors. Lisa, do you have one more thing to add?
Just I wanted to mention something in case anyone might find this useful. So back in the day when this was a memorial, I did do a presentation on the Earth Charter, linking it to specific aspects of a variety of our social statements. If anyone is interested in that material, I am happy to share it because I presented it at my synod. So if you think that would be good educational material to introduce the Earth Charter and link it to ELCA social statements to gain, I guess, support within your congregations, I am happy to share those materials. Just contact me.
And do you think we could add them to the post following up on this?
If you remind me to send them to you.
I
yeah.
will. Excellent. I'll be happy to do that. Thank you. And I'm curious, as we're at the hour right now, is anybody out there feeling called to close us in a quick prayer? I would really appreciate it.
Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to talk about how we care for creation, for our earth, and how we develop relationships with each other. Conversation is a starting point. Our life in Christ is an ongoing conversation with God, with Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And so our conversation focuses on how we can preserve, sustain, and nurture our earth. May your Spirit continue to guide us. May we have the strength to do that which we are called to do and to discern that which is in the best interest of all. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. So great to see so many of you tonight. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, this will be up on the Connections call page, so be sure to find it and a lot of other calls there too. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Stevie. Thank you so much.
Night.
Night.
Thank you.